Hey guys, welcome back to Honkai Star Rail. In today's video, we're going to be going through the thing that I see most commonly asked, and that is, do you go for Silverwolf or Luocha? And I'm going to do my best to go through all the pros and cons for each, and then I'll go over and give you some examples of where your account's at and what I would do, and what I'm personally going to do on my free-to-play account as well. But before we get into it, we did just wrap up our last $100 giveaway and announce the winner in a community post, so we are going to do another one of those. Basically, just be subscribed and leave a comment and you'll go into the draw, and we'll draw the winner in a community post about a week away. More details in the description, but let's get into it. Now, first consideration, as always, I did another video going very briefly over these two, along with Jing Yuan, along with Kafka and Blade. So if you want a general summary of the 5 characters that we know about, then you can check that video out. But I wanted to dive deeper into these two. But if you are saving for someone like Kafka or Blade in the future, which are going to be the 1.2 banners, then obviously you want to make sure before you even look at pulling either of these that you have enough to get them to pity. Now, some people like to play it risky and don't want to save for a full pity, but hey, that's just what I would recommend. If you know you want, say, Kafka, then I would prioritize saving enough for Kafka, and then if you've mathed out that you have enough summons for Kafka based on where your pity is currently at, and you have some left over, then you'd be choosing between one of these two to pull for, or saving for Blade or something like that. So that is the first thing out of the way. But let's get into it. So we have both Silverwolf and Luocha. So I'm going to quickly go through the pros and cons for each. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts around them, what I will do on my free-to-play account, and what I would do depending on what I had on my free-to-play account if it wasn't so fortunate as it is now. So Silverwolf, we'll kick it off with her pros. She adds a weakness to the enemy. She's the only character in the game that we know of at the moment that is going to do that. I really like this effect. It's a really strong effect. Being able to add a weakness, it means you can just bring whatever character you really like, and Silverwolf can enable them to be really strong. That's what I really like about her. I really love her design, so personally I like her as a unit, but two, it means no matter which unit you find along the way that you really like, she sort of gives them some form of viability in any content that you want to do, because she can make them strong against the enemy. Now, we'll go into the weakness of this changing when we talk about the cons, but in general, being able to change weaknesses is a really strong effect. Then we have the multiple debuffs. We have attack break, defense break, speed break, and damage resistance down. So some really powerful debuffs that she is bringing to the table. The other thing is, I'm seeing a lot of people talking about, leaks and stuff like that, and nerfs and changes. I'm just going through general concepts of the characters in this one, and I'm going to wait till we actually get confirmation on what their numbers are, what any changes are for when it actually officially launches, because when you look at leaks and stuff like that, it's forever changing. So I'm going based on pure concepts and play styles of the characters, and then I would definitely recommend to everyone waiting until we see the official release of them, see what their state is. And as always, with any banner you're going to pull on, don't pull in the first 2 days, because everyone's just hype. You got the FOMO, you're pulling. Like, just wait is my suggestion. So multiple debuffs, always a positive for Silverwolf. Then we have skill point neutral / positive. Now, this is going to be dependent on the RNG of her add weakness, which we'll talk about in a minute. But in general, if she adds the weakness, then she's just going to basic attack until you need to apply that weakness. Now, this also scales really well with speed, because the faster you get, the more turns you will get in between having to reapply that weakness, which is really strong, meaning she can be skill point neutral or skill point positive, which is really nice from a supportive character who's adding those debuffs. And then also, she is a quantum breaking unit. For those people who don't have Zila, she's an option to break quantum. The only other one is QQ, and even though I love QQ, I know a lot of people don't like her. So if you didn't pull Zila and you don't want to use Qing Chui, is the way I've been told. People get mad that I don't say the name, but I suck at saying it, so that's why I say QQ. But if you don't want to use her and you didn't pull Zila, she is a quantum unit, and because all of her attacks are damage based, she is going to apply a break at some form with every one of her attacks, which is really nice. Now, into the cons, the RNG of the weakness adding. Now, this is where it's like sort of her pros could become cons. If you have her in a pure quantum team, so say that we've got her, we've got Zila, in the future, if we get like a buffing quantum unit and then maybe like a shielding or healing quantum unit, like that would be a pretty safe team to bring into just about anything, because you're always going to apply quantum weakness, and that makes her 100% efficient. Now, the other way you can play her is going to be what I would recommend. I think playing her in a rainbow team is just too unreliable. So the other way I would look at playing her is in sort of a 3 of one element plus her as a quantum unit, which would be something like maybe we look like Jing Yuan or Serval with Bai Lu, if you have a Bai Lu, because we're lightning there, and then a Ting Yun. So like the ideal team that I could see for her from the characters in the roster that we have now would be Jing Yuan with Bai Lu and Ting, because that's a really solid comp. They all synergize really well with each other, plus they're all lightning. And then when she uses her add weakness, she's got a 75% chance to add the lightning weakness. Now, I do want to state that I want to test her first. This is all theory based. I want to get my hands on Silverwolf and test how she actually works with the weakness applying and all that sort of stuff. But the problem comes in that the RNG with that weakness add, even if you have 3 of one element and then her of quantum, there's still that chance that she could apply a quantum weakness, meaning you lose the effectiveness that she would have brought by changing that weakness to the enemy, and you've got to try again. And if you lose that 75% chance like 2 times in a row, you're just feeling bad. Now, the good thing on that is a lot of the content is PvE that is retryable. Simulated universe, who cares? Everyone's going to clap that anyway. It doesn't matter. So we're really looking at Memory of Chaos, and you can retry to get the right RNG in that, and hopefully you don't get boned along the fight. So it's a negative, but also how powerful the effect is a really nice positive, even though it's got its downfall. So that is the first one in the cons, is the RNG of the weakness adding. Also, the RNG of the debuffs, you can't control what debuff. She puts these bugs on and then it's going to apply a random debuff. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal to me. Honestly, I just wanted to put it in there as a note that it is very RNG based as well. The other one is that she is effect hit rate reliant, meaning if she misses those effects, really gonna suck. So you really want to stack her effect hit, which really, for me, brings her into a more supportive role, because when I look at it, I'm gonna think probably my play with her, and this is just purely untested, would be use her as a pure support, speed on boots, effect hit rate on chest, and then energy regen on the rope, which means she's lacking a lot of damage, even though she could bring damage with her multipliers and stuff like that. And if you want to be really risky and not run effect hit rate and play her as a damage dealer, you might be able to. But for me, I think I'm going to want her on effect hit rate because I want to be reliably applying those debuffs. And then I want energy regen to keep applying more debuffs essentially. So that's what I'm thinking. I could be wrong on that call. Like I said, completely untested, just pure theory crafting on how I would like to use her. But because 1, with effect hit rate, it takes away from your damage, and 2, there's still a chance that you might not get those debuffs, which would really suck. And the last one is that she is single target. Now, if it's a single target fight, that's not a con, but for clearing waves and stuff, she doesn't AoE apply defense break like something like Pella does, and she doesn't AoE change weaknesses. But in general, I feel like her purpose in the game is not for clearing waves, it is for bossing. And even if you have 2 bosses, yes, it makes her less skill point efficient because she's going to skill on one, skill on the other. But in general, if you're playing more of a single target strategy, you can use her skill on one boss, you can nuke that boss, and then move on to the other boss. When I speak about 2 bosses, I'm looking purely at like Memory of Chaos level 8, 9, and 10, which you have sort of 2 bosses on the final stage of them, meaning that you're going to split your damage or kill one and then kill the other. So those are Silverwolf's pros and cons in my mind. Then we jump onto Luocha. Now his pros, he's a healer. That is a massive pro at this stage of the game because there's only one free-to-play healer with Natasha, and if you don't have Bai Lu or Japad, you're really struggling to survive through flaws of Memory of Chaos, and clearing Memory of Chaos is how you're going to get extra gems from starring them up. So he's going to be a massive pro, being that if you don't have a Bai Lu or a Japad, he's your only other healing option that you can actually aim for with the currency you save. Number 2 is the smart healing. He basically has these flowers that when an ally gets low enough, he will proc and he'll use his skill on his ally without actually consuming a skill point. So he'll get a healing effect of his skill without consuming a skill point or anything like that by consuming one of those flowers, which is really nice. Next up, he has a strip, AoE strip on his ult, which is really nice. And the ult, and so when we look at him, he's damage based, with Imaginary Break. At the moment, there's no free-to-play Imaginary Break character in the game. The only Imaginary Break is Welt. We will get Yukong as well as a 4-star Imaginary unit in the same patch as well. So there will be another one. But when we look at him, he's damage based, meaning you're going to build him for attack, which also becomes a con as well. But it means he's going to deal more damage, which is going to help you along the way with speed clears. Plus, like I said, he's got that AoE strip, which is really nice as well. So damage based with the Imaginary Break. Moving on from that, the healing field scales well with speed teams. So the way he's going to work is he also has this field that he can put up, and when an ally hits an enemy in that field, the ally will be healed. So as we get further into the game, and that's where I think he's more of an end game specialist healer, because he just scales better the further we go in, being that he's more of an offensive healer, meaning once you got better gear, higher levels, better light cones, all that stuff, he's going to be more effective because he's bringing more pressure, but he doesn't have that burst healing. So with that healing field, like I said, it scales well with speed because your allies will take more turns the faster they get attacking those enemies, giving them more healing effectively. Then we jump into the cons. One is squishy. We look at Bailu and Natasha. They're both chunky because they heal based off attack. Heal based off HP, whereas he is healing based off of attack. Once again, this could change. This is just what was in the last build that we saw of the game. So he is a bit squishy, and in the early stages, that might be a bit of a con because he can't take as many hits. And if you're just trying to clear Memory of Chaos stages and you're not at the stage of 3-starring them yet, say you're level 60 or 70, you're really going to feel him being a lot more squishy. Then he has a low amount of AoE burst heal. His only healing AoE is through that field from allies attacking them. So he doesn't have that AoE burst heal that both Natasha and Bailu do bring. So if your whole team's taking massive pressure and they're not taking enough turns to heal themselves up by attacking the enemy, then you will start to feel the pressure of that. Once again, leaning into that idea that he is more of an endgame specialist, and that's where I think he's really going to shine. And then the other thing is that he doesn't have any offensive buffs. For an offensive healer, being that he scales off attack, so he's going to deal more damage with his AoE ult and stuff like that, unfortunately he doesn't bring any offensive buffs, and that's something I'm really waiting for in a healer in the game. If we do see it, I think it's going to be a very powerful thing, and I think eventually we will get something like that in the game where we get a healer who's HP scaling based, but also brings some offensive buffs to the team. So even though he's offensive based, he doesn't actually buff the team. It's just through his own uses that he brings that pressure. So those are the pros and cons for both of them that I have seen so far. Now I want to talk about what to do. So for me, I think especially for free to play, when we look at the 300 pity from the standard banner, I think that is so far away. Like it's at least, I'd say 6 months away, at least, for free-to-play players. If you're only using the cards that you get through the game, the standard passes. So that leaves us in the position where Luocha, in my mind, if you don't have a Bailu or a Jeopard, I feel like he's the one. Now, once again, you always summon for characters you enjoy. You don't have to do this. But I feel like if you want to start pushing Memory of Chaos, I mean, me on my account, I'm Trailblazer level 60 now, the account that I'm only using 4 stars at E0. I'm into Memory of Chaos floor 6. And it's a pretty big struggle without a second healer. Now, once I get all my defensive units and stuff leveled up and all my other units, maybe it comes a bit easier, but it's going to be a long time, especially for free-to-play before you get there, because I think most free-to-plays are sort of just reaching Trailblazer level 50 at the moment. So, having that extra healer is going to be really nice, but also, like I said, with him, he is that offensive healer, which I think is more likely to shine in late game than this earlier phase. So even though he is a healer, he's not going to be like a massive bursty healer. But I still think having him as a healer if you don't have Bailu or Jeopard is going to be a really smart play. Now, unfortunately, from my thoughts, I think Silverwolf is going to be the first banner, which really kind of sucks because it would have been nice if Luocha was first. I guess it depends where you're at. if he's second, it gives you more time to save for him if you want him. But if he was first, it would mean you could pull for him. And if you got lucky and got him early, then you could go for Silverwolf if you wanted to. But in general, if you don't have Bailu or Jeopard, I think that's the situation in which you want to look towards Luocha to give you that healing option. And if you don't care about Memory of Chaos, you don't want to put the time into pushing it and getting those stars, maybe you don't care about it. And that's when you just go for whatever character you like most. Like I said at the start, if you want Blade or Kafka, say for them, go nuts. But as for that, Silverwolf's like main competition at the moment is, if I can find her, is sort of Pella in that debuffing type role. But to me, I think Silverwolf is in just a league of her own with the ability to change weaknesses. Now, like I said, I think Silverwolf will find a team eventually where she just fits super well, where you can negate the RNG of that changing if you bring a pure quantum team. You know, at the moment, the only other quantum units we have are Zilla and also, where is QQ? And QQ, now you could run this as a team if we got a defensive quantum unit in the future, you know, something that operates a little bit like Jeopard or a healer. Then you could run those three and that. QQ can be very skill point positive as a sub DPS, like skill point positive and still deal some nice DPS. Then you got your main DPS here, you got your debuffer to bring the offensive pressure, and then you'd have a healer or a defensive unit if we had it. But ideally what you'd want when she will really shine is when we get like, you know, a supportive unit, a supportive buffer from the quantum that can do the kind of things that either like Bronya or a Ting does, but from the quantum element, because that is when I think we're really going to see Silverwolf shine in the future, when you don't have to rely on RNG. But even at this stage, when you do have to rely on RNG, like I mentioned earlier, when we look at something like this being playable, if you have something like that on the team, you got 3 lightning units that synergize really well. You're filling every role. You've got a debuffer, a buffer, a healer, and a DPS unit, and it works really well, but you do still have that chance that she applies quantum weakness and still flops. But that's my general thoughts. As for me on my free-to-play account, the 5 stars that I've pulled on my free-to-play account so far look something like this, where Zilla, and I think I had one more, but I can't. Oh yeah, Yangqing. So that's what my free-to-play account's looking like at the moment. So you can see for me, I've got Bailu and Jeopard. I just do not feel the need at all to pull for Luocha. I just think it's a bit obsolete for me personally, because I've already got that healing capacity and defensive capacity that I need, especially with both. If you only had Jeopard, Luocha's still a good option in my opinion, but if you got both of these two, it just becomes a redundant pull in my opinion. Yes, I think he will be a better healer than a Natasha, but I don't think I need him as much as I personally, and this is just a personal thing, want the Silverwolf. So me personally, Silverwolf, once again, if you don't have either of these two, then I think there is a very strong case to be made for Luocha. Once again, those are the pros and cons that I see with both. You guys make your decision. Let me know what you're thinking, or are you just saving for Kafka? Because I know there are a lot of people like that out there. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.